It's a special day at Anderson Center for Hair. We have a very special guest in from a long way away. The none other than Spencer Stevenson, aka Spex, and we're going to talk a bit about hair loss, the industry, and I want to also talk about Spex's new venture, the Hair Loss Lab. It's a very exciting project that's coming along. Spex, thank you very much for joining us. Here at the studio. You got it, man. You got it. So it's a long trip. You feeling much jet lag?
It's not kicked in yet, but yeah, it's been a bit of a mission. I'm heading over to Arkansas. My daughter's heading over there to have a look at university, so we're kind of syncing up. And I thought it was just too good an opportunity not to come in and see you. Being so close.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to do that. University of Arkansas, I've heard great things about that. I guess your daughter is an expert soccer player.
She's pretty handy. Yeah, she's pretty good. But yeah, big future ahead. Let's hope. But yeah, exciting stuff.
Well, I've known Specs for just about 10 years or so. And this is the first time that I've had an opportunity to really sit down and talk to you about, your history in the field of hair restoration. You've been an advocate for so many years. What originally motivated you to get involved in the industry and advocate for patients looking for hair loss care?
Well, basically, my story's been really well documented. I was, and I'll make the story short, but I was a repair patient. I jumped into having surgery at the age of 24. I had 4 strip surgeries by a company. I won't name their names, but back in, 25 years ago now. So that led me, unfortunately, on a journey. And prior to that, I was, I really struggled with my hair. I tried a lot of different processes, techniques. I wore a wig. It completely traumatized me. I was well known for my hair. And when I started to lose my hair, I really it paralyzed me. And I felt at the time a lot about identity, self-esteem, self-worth. So I kind of and at the time, the only processes you could research were by the yellow pages. So there was not a lot of information.
Yellow pages.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. God.
Do they have those in England?
I don't know if they still got them. If they do, they're doorstops now. I think. But that led me on a journey, essentially. And prior to having surgery, I'd been on a hell of a journey. And physically, mentally, emotionally, which when and then I'd had poor surgery, which I thought was going to be the answer. It was sold to me as it was going to be the answer. I then realized, I've been kind of in had here. So I kind of fell at the hands of the industry, and I fell at it fast and succinctly. In a number of years, I had a lot of surgeries, jumped out the frying pan into the fire, and again, a long story short, unfortunately at the time, it was the dawn of the internet, and there were prominent forums, hence the pseudonym Spex. I mean, I'm obviously my name is Spencer, but I still go by the handle Spex. My website is SpexHair. The brand that was built organically through, ironically, a pseudonym, try to navigate hair loss without anybody knowing I had a hair loss issue. So it's quite an irony now. I'm quite prominent out there, spreading the message that kind of through my journey of multiple repairs after that, multiple smaller procedures, tweaking it, openly, certainly got OCD, probably ADHD. I did not want this thing to be me. And fortunately, as it evolved, I met a lot of people. I learned a hell of a lot. So to answer your question, Ken, it's like my journey has been arduous, laborious, costly, labor intensive, financially grueling, and it enabled me to get a message through my journey. I felt a calling to make sure people didn't make the same mistakes I made. And very few people have had the number of surgeries I've got and the voice I've been able to help educate a lot of people. And I'm really proud of what I've achieved and I'm about to achieve through this ongoing journey, because what we've realized is hair loss is never ending. And the volume of people that are experiencing hair loss is never ending. And the amount of information that is out there is frightening.
Yeah.
And the lack of accurate information that's out there is unbelievable. So the role that I've performed was really needed at the time and needed more now than ever. So I set up SpexHair. I've been really fortunate to have a lot of platforms that I work with to get the message out, which is education. And luckily worked with you for nearly a decade now. You've been a SpexHair associated member, and together we can help protect people. And that's basically what my mission is about.
Very good. Very good. Well, I know you've helped a lot of people through the years, and it feels good, doesn't it? You know,
Feels right. I sleep well at night.
you know, that's what I tell my patients. You know, you get what you give in this world, and I sleep well at night. You know, I turn patients down. Surgery for a lot of men should be a last resort. You know, so many patients come in to see me, and they are unaware that having a hair transplant does nothing to stop the progression of actual hair loss. They come in for a transplant, and you know, basically I tell them that, you know, no, we're gonna be working through some other things first. And in some patients, I'll even say, if you go somewhere else and they offer you a transplant, you know, that's a big red flag. You know, 18, 20-year-old men with hair loss who haven't done any prevention, you know, these sort of things. I know you speak with patients from all around the world. I just want to pick your brain a bit. What trends concern you the most right now that you're seeing out there?
Oh, good question. I think the trend is what you've just touched on there. I think sadly, people are having a knee-jerk reaction to their situation of what they get from denial and really understand that they're experiencing hair loss is that they're wanting to fix it as well as possible. You know? So I think the trend is that people don't really understand the long-term implications of surgery and the nature that hair loss is progressive. And as you just touched on there accurately, is I feel that a big trend is people just want a knee-jerk reaction. I'll get this sorted. I won't worry about what I look like in 5 years. They don't really understand the implications of getting surgery and not creating that foundation of putting preventative measures in place to build the wall on that foundation. And I think that's a trend that we're always going to find, because people now, unfortunately, the world we live in, Amazon Prime, it's like you want it now. And people just think they want to just hop, they'll get it sorted. I'll hop on a flight, I'll go to Turkey, I'll go wherever. Just do it now, just do it now. They don't think that they're going to like worry about it when they're 30, 40, 50. Well, I'm 50 now, and I had my first surgery at 22, 23. I'm still as concerned now about my hair as I was back then, because maintenance is key. I'm still at the risk of losing more hair. So to answer your question, the trends are people sadly just want still a quick, affordable fix, and they don't worry about the long-term implications. And that's where my role and your role as educating these patients, as you rightly said, we've got to educate you first, buddy. Come back your own year once you prevented everything, and let's build on that foundation.
No, I completely agree. I over the last several years, I've noticed something, and it speaks to your point about patients wanting that immediate fix, because we're kind of in an instant gratification world. Excellent point about Amazon Prime. Like, it's just so ridiculously convenient. But I've had patients, young men, you know, 25, 26, and who say, I won't care what I look about, or I will not be caring about what I look like when I'm 40.
Yeah.
Because they think that 40 is old.
Yeah.
And it's kind of shocking if you understand the psychology of aging. And I have looked into this a bit. It's funny that I'm sure you look great for 50, by the way. I did not think you were in the big 50, but I will say that, you know, I'm sure you still feel like a strong young man.
We all feel like we're bulletproof when we're 20 years old.
I still play hockey.
Bulletproof, but
Yeah, I still work out. I still play hockey. I still get up in the morning. I'm ready to go. And I still, you know, I think a lot of younger guys feel that when they get older, they're going to like psychologically have this transformation where they're going to be like, okay, I'm ready for the cane and walker.
Yeah.
No, that feeling of youth and vitality of being alive and wanting to take over the world, that never goes away.
No.
What changes is the guy in the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and so I have to sort of help these patients sometimes understand, like, no, you're going to care more about what you look like when you're 40 as opposed to now, because the inside you know, who you are, that life force never really changes, but that is out there.
okay.
And
Definitely.
another question I got what are some of the red flags that patients should look out for when researching clinics? Because I know you research clinics all the time. You deal with many across the world, and I just want to hear your opinion on.
Yeah, well, I have a good insight. I work with a lot of clinics all over the world, good clinics like yourself, and
there's a number of red flags, but predominantly, like you just said, surgery is the last resort. The clinics that are telling you that we can get you in tomorrow and telling patients what they want to hear as opposed to what they need to hear are flags for patients to consider. And what I mean by that is common sense is a powerful tool in hair restoration. Because the hair restoration industry built on vulnerability and desperation, a lot of these unscrupulous places will tell patients exactly what they want to hear. And like, yeah, we can sort it out. Don't worry, you're not going to lose any more hair, because they are, the business model is they just need bums on seats, bums on seats. And I'm a clearinghouse for complaints. I have to deal with those repercussions of,
Clearinghouse for complaints. That's funny.
but I deal with patients all the time that have been like essentially missold, in the sense that, oh, I was told that I wasn't going to lose any more. Like, well, how can, no one's got a crystal ball here. So the key red flags people really need to understand is, if a clinic is selling you exactly what you want to hear and making it really easy to have surgery, then stop. If clinics are telling you, no, surgery isn't for you now, you need to go about it this way, and trying to educate you rather than signing you up, they are the clinics that you want to kind of create a relationship with, because hair loss is all about, it's like a marriage.
Yeah.
If you embark on hair loss and hair restoration, it is for the long term. It is not, you've got to think short, mid, long term. So you've got to sign up to that partnership with the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I actually tell my patients that. I said, I'll hand them my card. I give my consultation patients my cell phone. And I said, this is a long-term relationship we're starting. Just like with your dentist, you see him at least once every 6 months. That's what's going to be like for you and me.
The patients don't want to hear that, you see, because patients, sadly, especially when we've dealt with this medical tourism, as I'm sure you've seen, a lot of people are basically, they're driven by price fundamentally,
Yep.
and they want a quick, affordable fix. The patients are, sadly, this is human nature. They tend to really kind of subconsciously zone out what they don't want to hear. And so when they hear what is favorable to them, i.e., oh, you are a great candidate. Oh, we could easily sort that out. Oh, yeah, don't worry too much. You might need another surgery, but we'll look after you on that. Oh, actually, we've had a cancellation. You want to come in next week? We could drop £2. So those are classic common sense. If you went in to buy a Ferrari and the guy said, oh, funnily enough, this one's available now and we'll drop £5,000 off it and we'll throw in, something else as well, you'd be like, hang on a minute. So it's common sense is an incredible tool, and little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So you've got to, my whole kind of philosophy, and this is why we've worked closely together for 10 years, is education is key. And I'm all about educating patients, giving them the tools, giving them the resources, not just SpexHair. I'm a big kind of promoter of the IAHRS, the American Hair Loss Association, because people then have got a really good fighting chance and a starting point, given the plethora of false information that's out there. Now, are there clinics out there that aren't part of these organizations that are really good? Yeah, there are. But the majority, when you've got this huge number of clinics, relatively speaking, that you can go and have an accurate, informed consultation with and give yourself a fighting chance of getting accurately guided, then it's on that patient's head if they've not used that information. We can only lead a horse to water.
Yeah.
We can't make them trip.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think one of the things that, of course, I'm biased, but because I'm on this side of the fence, but if I were a patient, it's the way I try to structure my consultations with new patients. It's very educationally focused. We're trying to talk to them about the A, B's, and C's of hair loss, imbue upon them that this is a long-term thing, that hair transplants do not cure hair loss, and there's no high-pressure sales, with you can do that surgery 5 years from now. There's no rush. It's elective medicine, and I tell patients that if you're going to go somewhere and they're trying to rush you into, I did a secret shopping of a clinic here in Atlanta. I'm not going to say which clinic, but when I first got to Atlanta, before I became known in the city, in 2008 or so. I went to this clinic and they said, and I had no hair loss at the time, mind you. I have a little bit now, probably could use a few grafts, but at the time I didn't have any. And they wanted to sell me 1,200 grafts, and they didn't even ask if I was on any medications and that could conflict with the medications used in surgery. And they're like, oh yeah, well, we've got and just like you said, we've got a cancellation this Friday.
There you go.
And if you want, this was a Wednesday, so in 2 days, if you want to have your hair, we'll look another $2,000 off of it. And there was a lot of high pressure to get the surgery right away. Not a single mention about prevention. Not a single mention about the fact that I didn't have any hair loss. And it was a bit shocking because I'm very ethical the way I run the practice and the way Dr. Wetzel, my associate, runs. We got to do right by the patients, as we talked about at the beginning. But it is crazy about what's out there. Yeah, what people are willing to do for money, really.
Yeah, well, look, what you'll find is people that are kind of average intelligence will have a consultation. They're very vulnerable. They're very desperate. They're kind of preying on every word that's on your side of the table. They're trusting that doctor. But fortunately now there's it's a bit of a double-edged sword. There's a lot of information out there, but a lot will go back, leave the consultation, even sit in their car, driving on the way home, and they'll be like, that kind of doesn't kind of make sense. And patients sadly have to go through this process. There's only so many people we can try and get this information out to. But then retrospectively, they realize, Jesus, that's like, of course, it makes complete and utter sense. And there's an irony here that surgeons like yourself, and I've spoken with patients of yours who've emailed me and said, Dr. Anderson won't perform on me. And I'm like, well, that's probably for a really good reason. Well, why is that? You say, well, I'm not on finasteride, but I want the surgery now because I'm getting married in 6 months. I'm like, well, buddy, you've got to just understand why the doc is telling you that. It's in your best interest, because if you rush in and have surgery now, trust me, you're going to be canceling your wedding because you're not going to look good. Whereas let's just walk through this and set yourself up again for that long-term relationship that you've got to build with your own hair. The hair is painfully slow while you lose it, and it's agonizingly slow when it's growing back in. So the key to it all, to put yourself and your best foot forward, is because the tools and the information are out there. It's just finding it. Yeah. And it's educating yourself so that you have the good outcome long term. The secret to my success, despite 13 hair transplant procedures, all relatively small procedures by today's standards, but the secret to my personal success of my hair is preventative treatment. I was on finasteride for a good 10 plus years, and then like kind of a bit of an inkling, and just obviously being heavily involved in the industry and interacting with patients and hearing their stories and hearing, I'm human. I'm hearing this, and is finasteride going to start wearing off? So I got onto dutasteride, and it was probably a really strong move for me, because what it did is maintain my mid to my crown, everything solid, so that's the secret to my personal success when I have all these questions that come across the board. And just for the record, it's very rare for somebody to have 13 hair transplants.
Oh yeah.
I could have actually come to like a physician like yourself where I started out, and I would have probably needed, with right treatment, the right plan, over probably 2 to 4 years, had 2 surgeries, and had exactly this result.
That's a good point. Going back to the patient education aspect, one thing that, I've done some thinking about this, and, the whole industry is based on, they put a big focus on the number of grafts, the graft number. Now, that is the invention of Dr. Larry Lee Bosley when he first opened his clinic in 1972 in Beverly Hills.
I know the clinic well. That's where I went.
Okay.
But sorry to interject.
So they, but back then you could count the grafts, right? They were 4 millimeter plugs. You could count them from across the room, unfortunately. But now it's where, they can't really be counted. And I think that the whole industry is still focusing on graft number. What I think that is done, unfortunately, because you can kind of break down the price, like, the price is whatever $1,000, but that's only, $4 per graft. And it becomes a very small number, helps with sales, I guess. But I think one of the side unintended consequences of that is that it's sort of commoditized the the service, right? Like I think it's pretty easy for patients to make the jump. Oh, they said 2,000 grafts, and this clinic said 2,000 grafts, but this clinic is more expensive, and they don't really understand that there are so many shortcuts that you can take in providing this service. It's just from the instruments to the solutions to the skill, the surgeon to the skill of the technicians. There's so many shortcuts to take that they kind of don't understand that there's way more to it than the graft. Saying 2 transplants are the same because they have 2,000 grafts each. It's kind of like saying these 2 cars are exactly the same because they both have 4 wheels.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bit of a problem because I do get a lot of patients in here. They're like, well, they said this many grafts. And I'm like, okay, maybe, we need to talk more about, the differences in some of the transplants at these different places.
Yeah. Well, it's a really important point you made because sadly, there's always going to be a price war in hair restoration. But people new coming into this surgery or hair restoration don't understand the complex nuances of it all. And it's very difficult for patients to understand comparing eggs with eggs because hair restoration is not a cookie cutter type of procedure. So unfortunately, the only stake they have in the ground with their limited knowledge and in that vulnerable state and information overload is they hang on to the concept of how many grafts they do.
Yeah.
They don't really truly understand what that means.
Right.
Yeah. They don't really understand the implications and the long-term implications, the donor management implications, the supply versus the demand, all the different variables. I could go on for 20 minutes talking about how one patient is different to another patient. But what is key, I think, to give people that are watching this a fighting chance is you need to consult with ethical surgeons who are deemed honest and transparent to guide you. And you could go to 5 IAHRS accepted members and every consultation could be slightly different. Now, that does not mean that every single consultation wasn't in the patient's best interest. And yes, within that scale, some patients may believe, or rather some patients may come away from that consultation and have a variety of, no, you're not ready for a surgery. Yeah, you are, but you need to be on medication for 8 months before you come in. Yeah, you are, you need 2,000 grafts, or yeah, we can do 2,500. The margin between all that is so fine.
Yeah.
And it all depends on the patient, their circumstances, their age, their medication, their hair loss patterns, their genetics. There's so many variables. So it's impossible to say, yeah, let's compare that with that. And this is what is really important. Patients need to understand. And that's why I'm a big component of education, understand the implications of hair restoration surgery, and go and get guided by somebody that knows what they're doing and has got the patient's best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And that's all we can try and do.
Well, that's a great point. Doctors are just people, right? I've got this about doctors are just people who went to medical school, and I think patients ought to. I tell patients this, go have another consult. Who do you feel comfortable with?
It's important to do
Yeah,
that.
because as we mentioned earlier, these are long-term relationships. And you touched on hair loss prevention. I was fortunate. I had a really sort of A-lister global icon patient of mine came out in People magazine and on his social media. He was on I think a red carpet recently with TMZ, and
Mexican.
you know who we're talking about, of course, John Cena, and he
On a legend.
great guy, great guy. I did not know he was going to come out on social media, but if in one of his interviews, I think it was last September, I'm so happy that he did this. He pointed out that during his care, when he came to see me, we didn't jump into a transplant.
Yeah.
I put him on hair loss prevention, and we did effective scalp care for about 9 months or so before we stepped to his transplant. And I'm thankful for him for sort of helping spread the word and lower the stigma. I think and I told him this personally recently when he was here. I said, listen, you've done so much for the industry to help a lot of men understand that this is something within their reach. It's not a personal badge of shame. It's just, the way you were born.
Such a man's man as well to go out there and just hit it with a flat bat. And he's hit it with a flat bat. Yeah, but he, much like Wayne Rooney, the big you call it.
Oh, I know it is. Yeah.
Well, it's soccer. Well, when he came out, like, 15 years ago now, what he did is he normalized it and he broke the stigmas down around it. And that's why, like, it's brilliant, like shows like The Bold Truth, where I allow people to kind of talk about the issue. And it's been great to, over the years, been a part of The Bold Truth UK to allow people to talk. But what Wayne Rooney did was, because he was so famous, he had 80,000 people in the stadium every weekend talking about hair. He had people down the pub, down the bars, talking about hair. He enabled men to connect. And rather than that stigma of, oh, you're losing your hair, and the joking was like, oh, I'm losing my hair. Like, oh, why do you go and get a Rooney? Now, what's happened is 15 odd years on, John Cena has gone and openly and so humbly as well. He's like, not gone out there and promoted the fact. You didn't even know he was going to say it. You've not asked him to do it, but that was so legitimate. The way that he said it was so organic, because what he wants to do is he's like, look, I'm losing my hair. It's cool to lose. It's like not cool to lose hair. It's cool to talk about it. And if you want to do something about it, there's ways to go about it. And I went to this guy, and it's like unbelievable how many people he's empowered.
Yeah, I was really surprised that when he first posted it on his Instagram. I was actually down at the Steve Hightower Salon about to get my own haircut. It was, I'll never forget it. It was a big day in my career, August 9th, 2025. And I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a picture of myself, and I thought, that's a funny, I thought about you, Megan. I was like, why did we post that particular picture? But then I looked up and it was posted by John Cena. And oh my, he didn't tell me he was going to do that. But I think I think he's done, like you're doing, a lot to sort of help raise awareness and reduce the stigma of hair loss and what to do about it. So speaking of raising awareness, I understand that you've got a new venture cooking.
Yeah. Well, as part of this kind of trip that I'm on, I'm kind of, I've been very fortunate. I was always kind of wanting to spread awareness. And I've been very fortunate over the years with my platform, SpexHair, and great resources like Apey Gentleman, like to kind of create a new platform that enables people to get even more information. And I've kind of like launched this new hair loss lab, which is essentially a podcast that enables a variety of different ways of getting information out there. And fortunately, I've got some great people that have backed me with it, who have been through the process, have met with me. We've created relationships over the years. They know what I do. They know what I'm about. They know where it's coming from, my mission to help educate. And I'm really excited, and having you on as one of the original guests is to kind of just help spread awareness on all the different kind of facets of hair loss and hair restoration and kind of medication, and just to enable people like you just brought out, John Cena, to raise awareness whilst kind of making the stigma of hair loss much more acceptable, because we live in a world now where everything's accessible, more information is accessible, people are sharing information, but that's actually not a great thing in the sense that we've just discussed, people rushing into surgery. So what I wanted to do is, like, my information's always been getting out. I've been very lucky to have a voice in the mainstream media, but this is more like a kind of bolt and braces. It's more like kind of robust in the sense that it's a resource people can refer to, listen to podcasts, listen to stories, watch interviews. And I'm very fortunate that people that are coming on board and helping me with it have the real ability to get it seen and heard on a big scale, which I'm super excited about. So yeah, really, really looking forward to it. And I've got a couple of the bits for you, Ken. Or one of the original Hair Loss Lab. I've got you a cap that I want you to have. And maybe when you're mowing the lawn or you're doing some gardening, I've got a Hair Loss Lab t-shirt for you. And if you look on the back there, the principle.
So the front says the Hair Loss Lab. That is swank.
But on the principle on the back is to kind of educate, empower, and elevate. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, raise awareness to. And with people like yourself, we can get the message out there to a lot.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And you know what I'll do, Ken? I'll even throw in a mug for you.
Oh, look at this guy. Look at this guy.
Well, as part of the Hair Loss Lab family, you're going to be hopefully involved with us from.
Super nice of you, man. That is classy. That is classy. Might replace my gym mug. But that is so cool, man.
Well, no worries. Listen, thank you. And it's a pleasure to have
I really do. That's nice of you, man.
Anyway, well, I really appreciate you showing me around, I mean, let's just talk a little bit about the clinic. I think I just referred when we were walking around, you could probably have a running track in here. I mean, what is the square footage of this place?
It's about a little over 10,000 square feet.
I mean, it's a big square footage for a hair restoration facility.
So
So,
it's also educational facility. Yeah, now with a massive conference room.
Yeah.
And I got the photo studio, and we've got offices like this run for the podcast.
You've got 3 hours in here.
There's four operating rooms back there. I'm old school. I call them operating theaters. I'm not sure if you saw that on the label.
Yeah, no, I did. It's attention to details right there.
Operating theater 1 through 4, and then a separate lab for the hair wash station, the lab, the minus 40-degree freezer for the regenerative medicine products. We got a centrifuge room. This is, I consider them my studios.
Yeah.
Right. I was an art major in college, and that's one of the things I love most about the whole career is literally, I feel like I'm going to work to do little works of art every day in the spirit of pointillism. The sight making instrument is a pencil-like instrument, and I'm kind of just making some sights, listening to music, and like I did when I was a kid. When I was a kid, used to come home from hockey practice, get out to my room, and just draw, listen to music, and wait for mom to call me for dinner. So it's just very relaxing to me. I just kind of get in there, but I wanted it because I spent so much time here. I wanted a nice setup.
yeah, no, it really is. It's a beautiful location. I mean, I've never been to Alfredo, but my wife and my daughter, we're here, as I mentioned, and we're blown away. Like, I'm really looking I hope my daughter goes to university locally because it will mean I can come here quite regularly.
Yeah, man.
But with regards to you've had me on the ropes here with a few questions, far from on the ropes. You've been very kind with the questioning. But in terms of just tell us a little bit more about the facility, because this is going to go out on the Hair Loss Lab. A lot of people are going to see it from all over the world. So I wanted them to understand a little bit more about you and your facility and kind of how many procedures are you performing on average a month here? And talk me through that. Your team, how many but you're the only surgeon working from this facility because you've also got a colleague that works over in Atlanta. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Anderson Center for Hair.
Okay, Anderson Center for Hair was founded in around 2012, and it started out at my original office, which is in Atlanta, in a section of Atlanta called Sandy Springs, and that's a wonderful office. I was there until about 2017 when I opened up this one. We are at the Avalon in Alpharetta. It's a beautiful campus. It's a sort of a work, eat, shop, play center. If you're kind of like a really high-end outdoor mall, it's got all the nice restaurants and stores. It's nice, ample parking. But I wanted this facility specifically at the Avalon to be really a center for the cutting-edge treatments of hair loss. I mean, my background is facial plastic surgery, but since 2003, I've just been strictly and exclusively focused on the subspecialty of hair restoration surgery. So I wanted to create a center that could offer comprehensive care, both from a non-surgical and also a surgical standpoint, but also have a wing for education. I founded the American Academy of Hair Restoration Surgery, and so we train doctors. Of course, I'm on staff or on the faculty for Emory University School of Medicine, and we fairly routinely have residents and even faculty members from that medical school come visit me here and spend a day or two with me, both in the surgical rooms, which I'm motioning this way because they're behind this wall, in the surgical rooms and in consultation to really sort of help educate, the next generation of physicians.
Yeah. Tell me this. So your facial plastic surgery,
Yeah,
as that's where you started your journey.
yeah.
Why hair? Given all the different kind of areas you could have gone into with facial plastic surgery, why hair?
Good question. I'll give you the sort of the medium. There's a long story, and I'll give you the shorter story. Essentially, the reason I'm a plastic surgeon is because I wanted to be an artist. I was all through grade school, growing up. All I did was want to draw. I was that kid in the class who was always drawing. I asked my parents, I said, "What do you want to do with your life?" I'm like, "I'm going to be an artist." And they said, "No, you're going to starve." So I thought, okay, something else. So when I was about 14 or so, I was over at a neighbor's house, and he happened to be one of my friend's dad. He was a infectious disease specialist, Dr. Corrado, in the Philadelphia area, and he was making a sandwich on a Saturday afternoon. And I said to him, "By Dr. Corrado, I'm thinking about becoming because I'm just kind of considering life choices. But 14, I'm like, maybe doctor. I don't know. And so I'm thinking about becoming a doctor. I don't have any idea what kind I would be. What are your thoughts on that, or something to that effect?" And without even looking up at me, he just was putting stuff on his sandwich, and he asked me a question that changed my entire life. He said, "Well, can you draw? Are you any good at art?" My eyes got wide. I thought, yeah, that's my whole world, brother. What? Yes, tell me. What are you going to tell me? He's like, he just casually said, "You should be a plastic surgeon. You'd be good at it." And from that moment forward, I thought, done. That you can do art.
It was a sliding door moment for you there, right?
Complete the gate. I was like, it was written in the sky. I'm like, that's done. Because I was always already getting good grades. I'm like, just keep that up, brother. So, fast forward, 18 years. And so I found myself at 33, finished my residency in ear, nose, and throat surgery, finished my fellowship in facial plastic surgery. Now, this is very personal. To me, I got confused. I thought, he said you'd be good at it. He's right. I got the little manual dexterity down. But I got confused. I thought that performing, say, a facelift would feel like I was creating art. To me, I'm not speaking for anybody else but me, but to me, it didn't feel that way. It's kind of cookie cutter because you're very surgical landmark based. You cut behind this, in front of that. You dissect here, dissect down. You're kind of like working on an engine. There's all the parts labeled, and you pull everything tight. You cut this, you throw a drain in, and kind of felt very procedural, not very creative. And I didn't feel like I was creating. I didn't love it. In 2003, I discovered hair restoration surgery. I spent a couple of weeks with Dr. Martin Tesler in suburban Detroit, just outside of the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where I just finished my fellowship, and my whole world was changed because I assisted him for 2 weeks on these surgeries. He was making the sites, and I thought, you know what, geez, and he got me involved because I was a licensed physician in the surgeries, and I was thinking, this feels exactly like I'm creating.
Yeah, it's a good fit.
Yeah, and I thought, oh wow. So I went to the 2003 ISHRS meeting, and there was. And then I realized that it just gone from the one hair or the mini grafts to the one hair at a time transplant. These are ultra natural results. And there was this job offer with Dr. Bill Rassman in Beverly Hills. And I thought, okay, that's not a coincidence. So I signed up, and kind of the rest is history. And I just, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, making those recipient sites, I literally feel like I'm coming to work every day to create art, and I just love it.
That's great. Well, I think it's really important that people watching, because obviously I think it's really important. I found that relationship that the patient has with their doctor is really, really important, because it's not, I've like I say, the clearinghouse for complaints, but I've also been the patient in the chair countless times. I've been privy to tens of thousands of patient experience stories, good and bad.
Yeah.
But what you find through that process is the guys that are performing this, who are passionate about it, who are caring about it, who come from a place of whether they've had surgery themselves and they got into that, or like you just relayed that story there, how your journey was one that was very organic, but kind of meant to be, which is fascinating. So people that are listening to this are like, oh, the guy gets this. He loves it. He loves it because there's so many clinics, and this is why, to differentiate people when they're Googling hair transplants, this is why you want a physician that's so passionate about the art and understands the nuances of hair restoration, compared to, oh, this guy can get it done for $2,000 cheaper. I can get in tomorrow, but I don't know who's performing the surgery. And that boils back down to what we said about, well, this guy's 2,000 grafts and this guy's 2,000. Who are you going to go to?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to get that from you in a way that's, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And I've known you 10 years. So it's important that the patients understand where you're coming from that passion, because from that passion becomes the results.
Yeah.
And, that's why you've been as successful and as renowned as you are. And you've got people like John Cena banging on your door to perform a hair transplant.
Well, I'm fortunate and thankful for that. It's not me. It's our awesome patients. I work hard, of course, and I've got an awesome team around
Tell
me.
me about the team. Tell me about how many technicians you've got here. And, I've met your lovely colleagues here, but tell me a little bit more about the intricacies of the team here at Anderson Hair.
Yep. So we've got, I'm fortunate to have assembled an amazing team. We've got stars at every position, including Madison and Sam. There are front desk coordinators, one at each office. The people who answer the phone have to deal with so many questions. Some patients are, hair loss is emotional, right? Hair loss hurts. And so they have to deal with a lot of sometimes emotional patients. So they are absolute studs. My COO is a woman named Bex Mitchell. She kind of is the glue that holds it all together. Matt Longshore is our patient care coordinator. Lucky to have found him. He worked with Bosley for about 12 years before I hired him about 10 years ago. So he has pretty much just about the same amount of experience in this field as I do. The culture here at Anderson Center for Hair is vastly different than it is at a place like Bosley. So he got to downshift. There's no high pressure sales. There's good touch points throughout the journey, educational based, and he loved that. So he's super passionate about his job and can answer most any question about pre-op, post-op, hair loss prevention, all of it, because he's had so much experience.
Yeah.
And then my technicians, we've got Keisha is my head technician. She, another Bosley transplant. She was the head technician for the entire Bosley Corporation. They used to fly back when I hired her, I think 11 years ago. She was working with Bosley, and they would fly her around to the different clinics in the United States. She's a very disciplined Jamaican woman, and doesn't tolerate any foolishness, as she puts it. And so
Best be on my best behavior there, Ken.
and she knows every. All right, I have to. I joke. Keisha's the boss here. I just work here.
Sounds like my wife.
So I have Keisha, and she knew everybody in the industry because she's been doing it so long. She'd already been working with Bosley for, I think, at least 10 years before I hired her.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So obviously there's that where you referred to her working with Bosley for so many years.
Yes.
Now, did you find, this is like there's no kind of ulterior motive here, but I was a repair patient of Bosley. Bosley have been performing procedures for countless years, a big franchise, as essentially the McDonald's of the hair transplant industry, just to let people understand it. But was there an unwinding of certain protocols, certain techniques, certain methods that you felt you needed to fine tune?
Yes.
Yeah. So talk me through a few of those things, because I think this is something that isn't discussed openly, is the fact that much like doctors, no technician is the same. And the doctor is only as good as their technicians. And with somebody that has an army of technicians that you have and are performing kind of procedures day in, day out, you, as the name on the door, need to train these technicians in such a way that they understand the meticulous nature, given your background, your artistry, everything, because they're so heavily involved. You can't perform the surgery without them.
Right.
So talk me about through the kind of unwinding that's required in that scenario.
Well, I think in a company, the tenor of the company starts at the top. The attitude towards the patients, it starts at the top. So when we sat down, when I hired them, I made it very clear. Nobody's in a rush. All right, this is a work of art. We care about our patients, and they can see how I interact with the patients. Yeah. And so when they see how much I care about the patients, and I think that just allows them, because they're all they're empathetic, caring humans. They're not robots, right? They're people. And so, I had to basically we had them downshift, slow it down. I said, we're not going to use the cup. We're going to put, keep them in the dish. We got protocols about which solutions to use in terms of the follicle holding solutions. We don't just use saline. We use Custodial HTK, how much to put in there. And I kind of set up all the protocols. And at the beginning, it would be kind of a daily, I would go over the whole process before the procedure started, and I mainly trained Keisha. But I'm back there involved with the procedures the entire day. So
Any pushback from these technicians? Let's say they've been trained in a certain way. You're telling them to do something, and they're like, "Oh no, actually, Ken, I think we should do it like this." Has there ever been any kind of restriction in that sense, or are you telling them, "No, this is how it"?
I'm big on education, right? Big in terms of the patients, but also in terms of anybody here at the clinic. So I said, for instance, in terms of how many follicles we're going to take out of the dish, we're not going to put a huge pile in a cup where they're going to dry out. And I
To speed the process up.
yeah, to speed it up. I explained it. I'm like, look, we want the very best results for our patients. We're going to see them again. They're our friends. And so I point out that the longer those follicles are out of that liquid, the less likely they are to make the journey from the donor area to the recipient area. So we want the best results. And so we're going to just kind of modify things and
Slow it all down.
yeah. And I don't stress them out with huge numbers of cases. Like I understand at some clinics, and they told me, they're doing in their previous position, they were doing up to 4 surgeries a day. We're not doing that. We typically do 1 surgery a day. Sometimes we'll do 2 if it's a smaller case in the afternoon. We're not going to we're not going to do 2 huge surgeries.
And that's doing 4 cases a day. To what means? That's just the machine.
Well, those are. I will tell you, it's easy to tell because there are some practices that are owned by businessmen.
Yes, of course.
Right. That's a big. Well, and that's a tip to patients out there. If you can tell, you can find out who owns a practice. Yeah. If it's owned by a group of men who are not practicing physicians in that practice, that leads to, I think, as in any service industry, it leads to a much more greater focus on the bottom line dollars than if the practice is owned, like this one is, by a doctor who's involved in the surgery every day. I care about the patients, and I don't have an MBA, right? I said so. It's not about we don't have monthly budget meetings. As I'm sure they do at some other practices that are owned by businessmen.
Well, that's a great kind of go-to for anyone researching. It's like as a red flag. Research who owns the place. Yeah, because if it's owned by a consortium of investors, as opposed to the doctor's name whose name's above the door and he's performing surgery, then chances are you're going to put yourself in a better situation.
It's common sense.
Potentially.
Yeah, certainly potentially. I mean, we're not naming names, but there are practices out there that are owned by businessmen. They've got 20 or 15, 30 doctors on their website. They're all over the nation. That's not a physician-owned practice technically. So we I don't know. I think that's with any.
Well, it just any Zerdas resin. It all gets just diluted down, and hair restoration has become a commodity, like we know, and it is a very competitive environment. It is driven by emotion, and what is really important is that these conversations are had, and people who have a real interest in looking after themselves for the long term, just spend time listening to what we're saying, try to understand what we're trying to tell you here. It's not we're saying don't have surgery, it's saying get educated before you have surgery, and understand if you're even an eligible candidate for surgery, because you'll thank us for it in the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's a funny industry in that it's important for the patient to have to educate themselves. Like, if you're going to have an appendectomy, it's the bar is very high for a general surgeon to even offer you an appendectomy. I can't speak for the UK, but certainly here in America, you've got to have a board certificate in general surgery. You've got to get hospital credentials at the hospital, and those and a medical license. But that one's relatively easy to get. But the board certificate and the hospital credentials, those are not easy to get. In hair transplant surgery, people are often shocked to find out all you need is that medical license. No board certificate and anything, no hospital credentialing. The barrier to entry for a hair transplant surgeon in the United States is relatively incredibly low.
And meanwhile, but that then opens up the ability to offer the opportunity for people to have surgery there. But then what's happening is it's not even doctors that are performing the surgery. It is actually technicians that are performing the surgery, and you don't know what their experience or background is.
Yeah, that's one aspect. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people are shocked in this country. A practicing psychiatrist who was seeing patients on Friday has every right to, on Monday, if he had the instruments and the patients, with no training whatsoever at all, he could watch YouTube, doesn't matter, could offer hair transplant surgery on Monday, having just, and just hang a shingle. Now I'm a hair transplant. And if you look carefully in Atlanta, across the United States, most of the hair transplant surgeons do not have a board certificate in any ABMS certified surgery. So it's a funny field. And you got levels of talent and experience with surgery are all over the place. You touched upon the experience of the technicians. I think that, it is a huge red flag if the technicians are doing, certainly administering any medication, certainly making the recipient sites. I'm lucky. All of my technicians, you asked how many I have about 9. Each of them has a minimum of 7 years. Most have 10 to 20 years experience. Yeah. And the combined, including Matt and our combined experience in this field, all the staff is actually over 200 years, which is
an important question. It's an important question that patients should ask. How many years experience of your technician they are? What patient would think to ask that question?
Right. That's pretty. Guess what? That's getting into the granular nitty. Yeah, that's important. But does that start last week? Because the barrier to entry is this. You can just show up and now I'm a hair transplant surgery technician.
Exactly.
No training required.
But it's little things like that that are common sense.
Yeah.
Like these people are the people that are performing the most time.
Yeah.
In touch with your scalp physically. So you want to know how many years they've been doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just obviously we're limited to time here. But I think a really important question is to ask about your colleague. You have another surgeon that works under your banner. Tell us a little bit about him.
Dr. Wetzel is amazing. Another star of the team. Has been with me about 4 years. In a former life, he was a neurosurgeon.
Wow.
And he transitioned into it. He used to work on the inside of the head. Now he works on the outside. And I trained him about the ins and outs and how to do hair transplant surgery. He had a full 6-month training program with me. When I sat with him in the room initially, he was just watching, but he's already surgically trained as a neurosurgeon. So he's really good with the fine detail. And so he's been down at the Sandy Springs, about 15 miles from here. He's at the Sandy Springs office most of the time. He's up here on Wednesdays. Wednesday's my non-clinical day. I've got to attend to the business and, other appointments. But so I operate Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Dr. Wetzel is here at the Avalon on Wednesday, so I get to catch up with him in person. And we're friends too. We motorcycling together and go out to dinner with the ladies. But he's been, you can check his online reviews. Patients.
As an NHS accepted member, I've heard only lots of things about it. Yeah. So fantastic. I think it's just important that because no one man can do it all.
Yeah.
But no, that's interesting. But look, Doc, I just want to say, thank you so much on a Sunday.
Yes.
On Memorial.
This is Memorial Day Sunday.
Memorial Sunday. When my family and I made the plan to come over here, we did not realize it was such an important weekend. So I wanted to thank you so much and your colleagues here to come in on such an important weekend and share your time with me and allow these people that are watching the insight that they wouldn't normally have from inside one of the best hair transplant surgeons in the world.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't get to see you as often as I'd like to because we're located across an ocean. So when you told me you were coming in, I'm in town. That was an absolute no-brainer. I'm like, we're gonna go spend some time with Spex. Yeah, and I'm super thankful. This is awesome.
Oh, buddy,
I will put these to use.
I promise you that. I hope so. Thanks again, Dr. Ken Anderson.
This has been, of course, Dr. Ken Anderson and Spex. Spencer Stevenson here. He's just launched the Hair Loss Lab. I'm proud to be an early partner in that with him, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for tuning in today.